Good morning, everyone. We will go ahead and get started now, and people can continue to join as they free up this morning. So my name is Frances Klingenberger. I am the Manager of Strategic Programs at the Greater Bakersfield Chamber, and I am very happy to welcome you all to this morning's webinar about Enneagrams. So we are on our fourth webinar in our BYP Virtual Summit Series. This summit is usually a one-day summit event where we bring together young professionals from all over Bakersfield and Kern County. But of course, due to all of the challenges of 2020, we have changed this one-day event into a virtual summit series that spans the course of a few months. So this year's summit will feature a free weekly webinar on various topics. Some of the topics we have already covered are your LinkedIn presence and prioritizing your health. Some of our future webinars will be on leading during a crisis, diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, entrepreneurship, achieving financial success, and so many more. So right now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Hillary Haynes, and she will go over a few Zoom etiquette rules.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Hillary Haynes from the Greater Bakersfield Chamber. Just want to thank you guys all for joining in today to learn more about Enneagrams with Grace. I want to shout out to our sponsors because without their support, we could not put on these free weekly webinars for our community. So a big thank you goes to Strata Credit Union, Comprehensive Blood and Cancer Center, and Kearney's Business Technology Center. So just for Zoom etiquette, want to let everyone know, FYI, we are recording these webinars. So for those who couldn't attend today, or if you want a refresher, if you want to go back and watch the video again, they will be uploaded to the Chamber's YouTube channel. So check those out there. And then we ask that everyone be muted unless you are speaking. This will help reduce any background noise. And then finally, if you have a question for Grace, please type it in the chat. Frances and I will be moderating that, and Grace will stop every so often and take questions. If we do read your question aloud, if you want to go off mute, then please feel free to elaborate on your question or and engage in conversation with Grace. Frances?
Thanks, Hillary. At this time, I would like to introduce you to today's speaker, Grace Cabalka. Grace is a certified spiritual director and has been an Enneagram coach for the past 10 years. Today, she will be giving us the background of the Enneagram and the importance and benefits of knowing the different types. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to pass it off to you, Grace.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. This is always a challenging way to present. I'm sure you've all been doing it, so we're all in good company. But yeah, I see Hillary and I see you girls up there, so just wave at me if someone really has a question where I need to be stopped. If I don't stop in time, I'll try to honor that. But I want to just start by just saying I really do, at the core of who I am, believe that we are all here to be our best selves. And I know all of you attend seminars like this are doing your best to be the best you can be. And through research and brain science and all kinds of things that we won't go into today, it's been proven that the best leaders, the most successful people in our world are the people who truly are self-aware and know how their inner workings work and how they affect other people. And I think it was Harvard Business School even did a study, and the most successful business owners are those that are self-aware and can self-observe. So I'm sure in whatever places of employment you're in, you've probably done different personality typing tests, maybe Myers-Briggs or the 4 temperaments or the DISC test. They're all very useful. So this is just another personality test. But what makes the Enneagram distinct is the other tests are really focusing on behaviors or outside manifestations of who you are, where the Enneagram really goes more to the motive of why you do what you do. So that's really the biggest distinction between this type of test and all the other tests out there. Not one is not better than the other. They're all useful. But for me personally, having worked with a lot of different systems, this has been the most helpful in really me showing up. And I'll use that word a lot today, where we need to wake up and be all that we were created to be our best selves. And this system is really helpful in doing that. And the goal of that is really to understand ourselves and then be able to give compassion and empathy and understanding to those we work with, those we're in partnership with, to ourselves, to our family, to really every relationship we have. So I did send some handouts. I want you just to set those aside for right now or flip them over. And I'm going to go through some very simple slides, and you can take notes on the back of your handout, and then we can refer to those later. But we're going to, I'm sure you're familiar with the Enneagram. It's very popular right now. I'm not sure why it's gained such popularity in the last couple of years, but it really has. But it's a very old tool. It's been around, some say, for hundreds of years, but definitely since the 70s. And it's been worked on and improved over time, but it's not a new tool. But one thing that I think those of us that teach the Enneagram and work with people using the Enneagram, we really want to help people understand how the system works, because it's not a system just to identify you and put you in a box and label you. So you have the sticker, you know, hello, my name is Grace, I'm an Enneagram 9. Like, that's really what we don't want to happen. That's kind of a fun, you know, bar game or whatever, or table talk, but it really is a tool for growth and transformation. So I start kind of from the front door, which is explaining the system, how it works, why it's useful. And then next week when we meet again, we'll really help you identify what type you are. So you'll get some awareness today of, like, I might be that type, I might be that, but we're going to really hone in on that next week. I'll talk about taking online tests at the end today. Remind me if I forget to do that. But I think the best way to really discover your type is to study the system, learn about the different motivations of each type, and then really go understand, this is who I am, this is where I'm starting. So let's just dive in. And I'm going to go kind of slowly through the structure of the Enneagram, because it's super important that you understand how it works. Otherwise, it's just another, like I said, just another name tag. So I want you to understand the beauty of this. It's complex, but it's also very simple. So it is, it's alive. It moves. Like, it is not static. So to understand the movements of the Enneagram and how the lines work and how the wings work, all of that is super important. So we're going to take time to explain that. Well, we'll start with the very basic. What does the word Enneagram mean? Simply means Ennea means 9, and gram means drawing. So it's just a drawing of 9 numbers. And we use numbers. There are words for all the numbers, and people have given them different titles, but we want it to have no value. There's not one number that's better than another. There's not one number that has a higher value than the other. They're just marking a place on this diagram, because it's really important how this structure works and where those lines go. All those lines mean something. So it's just a drawing of 9. So very simple. So what we're going to talk about is there are basically 9 Enneagram types, and each type sees the world and circumstances from a completely different lens. So understanding each other's perspectives will help us to have more compassion, kindness, mercy, grace, and forgiveness. So if we were doing this live today, if I was all with you, I'd bring 9 of you up in front, and I would make you put on 9 different colored sunglasses, just like you see there. Because these are 9 types, but you know, every color has a million hues, right? So you and I might both be a 4 on the Enneagram and say the 4 is represented by red. We could have a different shade of red and we would look completely different. So it's very not limiting. It's not putting you in a box. It's really kind of taking the lid off the box and letting you wake up to all the ramifications of who you are and how beautiful your color is and how much we need your color in the world. But also, if you were in my workshop and you had that color lens on, I would let you know that you cannot change the color of your lens. Okay, that is your color, that is your type. And so say my type is red, my color is red, and your type is blue. If we're looking at a problem or looking at something in the world, we're engaging with the world, we're trying to solve something at work or something in our family, we are going to see it with 2 different colored lenses. And that does not change. But I can learn to understand that the way I see the world is not always altogether the right way. And same for you. So I'll just give an example from my marriage. My husband and I, we've been married 40 years, which just sounds horrible, but we have been married 40 years, sounds really long. And it would have really helped us in the first few years of our marriage to understand we don't see the world the same way. If we would have understood that the way I see it is not completely right, and the way he sees it is not completely right, and our goal is not to get each other to see it completely how we see it and agree with us. The goal is to understand that we see it differently, and how can we build a bridge between the two? How can we meet somewhere where we understand, oh, I see how you're seeing it, and I can have compassion and empathy and kindness toward that, and I need you to see how I'm seeing it. But first, we have to understand ourselves and how we see things and why we see them that way. So that's basically all it is just kind of 9 different ways we engage with the world. And so there's those 9 colors, or those 9 types, those 9 numbers. And then if we go down this road of Enneagram work, you'll learn, or you might hear people say, well, there's 3 different subtypes under every number. So I'm just throwing this at you, so you see it's a very complex system. So, but it's very simple to begin with, and you don't need to get to the complexities of it. We're just trying to get to your core. So under every 9 types, there's 3 subtypes, so that makes 27 types. And so under all that is a lot of color. So I just am trying to help us see that we cannot type somebody else. It's really hard to judge what anybody else does and why they do it, because this is all about the motive, the core motivation of why you do what you do. So I'll drive that home this morning, like it's really about why you do what you do, not what you do. So I want to give an example of how all the different numbers or colors have different motives. So I won't go around all 9, but let's say we all want a clean house. Okay, so you might go into someone's house and it looks really clean and nice, and you might immediately go, oh, they're a perfectionist. Well, that might be true, but a 4 might want a clean house because they want you to see that they're special and they're authentic and their home is really, really kind of authentic and cool. Or a 9 might want you to see a clean house, or want you to come into a clean house because they need their house to be peaceful and orderly in order to stay at peace within themselves. Or, do you see what I'm saying? Like the house can look the same, but the motive for having the clean house could be completely different. So that's what you really need to pay attention to as you're trying to find the type you identify with. Let me say really quickly, you have all 9 types in you. There's not just one type that you are, you have it all in you, but there is one starting point, and that's what we want to identify. So why, let me skip that. So the Enneagram, so look at it as your internal GPS system. We're all very familiar now with phones and internet systems, but what it does, it reveals why you think, feel, and behave in particular ways, so you can steer your internal life in the best direction for your personality type. So let's say you've moved to Bakersfield from Spokane. Well, you aren't ever from Bakersfield, right? You always started in Spokane. You might live in Bakersfield and you might tell people you're from there now, but you started in Spokane, and that will never change. So that is your starting point. But in order to get to where you're going, you need to understand where you started. So that's a big part of it. So it's, again, revealing, just take note of why you think, feel, and behave the way you do. So again, this is distinct from other personality typing systems, because sometimes we're in a work environment, we realize, okay, that's how they need to be approached because this is what they're going to act like if I approach them a different way. So we're focusing on their behavior, where this again is focusing on why they're doing what they're doing, and then we can have deeper empathy for ourselves and for others. I need to try to get rid of people's faces over here. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. I can read it better. Okay, so next, again, it's your internal GPS system. Oh, it's not moving for me. Sorry. I don't know why it's not going. Sorry, girl. There we go. Okay. So I don't know why it worked then. Okay, so we're trying to know your current location, which is your main Enneagram type. So you can know your healthiest destination, the place where you move forward. And I'm going to skip that slide. Go to the next slide. Sorry. It's not moving for me. Let me go up. I practiced this so many times yesterday, so this wouldn't happen. So I want to emphasize this, to how to use the Enneagram to grow. Getting to know yourself is a journey, not a quick trip. But the great news is if you get off course, the Enneagram will guide you back. So that's the goal, is like to understand when you're getting off course of who you really are meant to be and to steer yourself back. So look at it like a rumble strip on the highway. So kind of those triggers where you start to feel something in your body or something's going on, and or you're falling asleep on the highway and you start that, you hear that rumble strip. The Enneagram's going to help you identify those rumble strips quicker and then get back into your lane where you're really functioning as your best self. It's going to do this every time. So here's the structure of the Enneagram. Wings. So the wings, how many of you have taken an online test? I only see a few of you, but I'm sure some of you have. So sometimes when people take the online test, they might test like, my highest number is a 9, and then a 4, and then a 7. And so sometimes people think those are their wings, but those are not your wings. So to understand the structure, first we need to understand that the 2 numbers next to your core number, that you're going to know what that is soon. So the 2 numbers next to your core number are your wings. So if I'm a 9, I have a 1 wing and an 8 wing. And I want you to look at those wings as not something you're ever going to become. If I'm a 9, I'm not going to someday become a 1 or an 8. Those are just my wings, like a bird. They're attached to me. So your wings are the 2 numbers attached to you. So I will have people say to me, "Oh, Grace, I'm a 2 with a 7 wing." I'm like, no, that's impossible. You just can't be that. So what your wings are just, I want you to look at it kind of like salt and pepper. So they flavor your type. So if I'm a 9, sometimes I will go to my 1 wing because I need a little more of that flavor in my personality. I need that to help me get to where I want to go. Or I might go to my 8 wing because it helps me get to where I want to go. So and those different wings will come out in different circumstances. Around family, we may be more 1 wing. Around work people, we may be more of another wing. Those shift all the time. So understanding that core doesn't change, but the wings can kind of flop back and forth. And some people just have no strong wing at all. They're just solid, their core number. So the wings are just right next to you. Now here's a really important key. So the triads, and this is where we're going to camp a lot today, because once you can identify your triad, it will help you find your type. You can easily eliminate other 6 types. So you see there's a lot of triads in that little diagram there. But we're going to focus on the 3 main triads of the Enneagram. So the 3 triads relate to the 3 centers of intelligence. So that just simply means how you engage with the world. Why that's not going. Next. So there's one triad is the instinctual center. So look at that color there, the blue, the 8, 9, and 1. That's called the instinctual center. So this is how you first engage with the world. So this triad first engages with the world through their body or through their gut. So once I go through these, you might go, yeah, that's me. So this triad is like just a gut feeling. They just kind of power their way in, power their way through. They just move from their gut. They feel it in their body, they go. The next triad is the heart center or the feeling triad, that green line. The 2, 3, and 4, they engage in life first and foremost with their feelings, and we're going to explain how that works. So we've got the gut triad or the instinctual center, the heart center or the feeling triad, and then the last one is the head center or the thinking triad. This triad, 5, 6, and 7, engages in the world first of all through their mind. They think things first. So right there you see we have 9 different ways, specifically 3 different ways of engaging with the world. Some people engage just with their gut. Some people engage with their heart. Some people engage with their mind first. We have all 3, but there's one way we enter immediately. So just think about that for a minute and I'll explain those more. So each Enneagram type is driven by an imbalance in one of these 3 centers. So you have all 3 centers, we're whole people, but we're imbalanced in one. So as we get into the Enneagram, I'll explain that some types, so say a type 7, they are actually feeling repressed. So they're engaging in life with their mind first. And sometimes we have to stop and go, but how do you really feel about that? I want to hear how you feel. I don't want to hear how you're thinking about it. I want to hear how you feel, because they're imbalanced in that. So the goal of the Enneagram, one major goal, but is just to help us balance out so we're not unaware of the other centers of our intelligence. So we're more engaged. If I'm in the heart triad, sometimes I need to bring in some rationale. I need to bring in some thinking. If I'm in the gut triad, sometimes I need to bring in some feeling, or I need to bring in some heart because I'm not feeling it. I'm just going and not paying attention to people's feelings. So it's really important to identify which triad you're kind of imbalanced in. This shows up first. The other ones are there, but this shows up first. So the instinctual center contains types 8, 9, and 1. They're imbalanced in their gut instinct. The heart center, 2, 3, and 4, they're imbalanced in their feeling center. And then the 7, 8, and 9s are imbalanced in their, 6, 5, 6, and 7s imbalanced in their thinking. What does that look like? What does that mean? By finding your triad first, as I mentioned, you can eliminate the other 6 types immediately. And you can now focus in on which of the 3 types in your triad is your main type. So just stop for a minute and just, as I go through these, just start thinking, that resonates with me the most. I am a gut person, or I'm a heart person, or I'm a head person. So we're kind of head, heart, or gut. So types 8, 9, and 1. They have similar assets and liabilities surrounding their instincts. So they're all part of that triad, but they manifest very differently. So they engage in life and circumstances through their gut instinct, and their emotional struggle is anger. Okay, so pay attention to that. So every triad has a different emotional struggle. The gut triad, the emotional struggle is anger. It manifests very differently in the 3 types. So type 9s are asleep to their anger and do not even know this is their emotional struggle. So they're just stuffing it down. So let's give an example of like a 2-liter thing of Coke, and you've got the lid on it. So let's say you shake up that Coke. The type 9s, they just don't even take the lid off. They're just holding all that fizz inside. They don't even realize they're angry until all of a sudden it just blows up one day. The type 8s, we'll talk about in a minute, they just take the lid off and it just blows everywhere. They express their anger. So with the type 9s, suppress their anger. The type 8s express their anger. The type 1s, which you'll see, is they repress their anger. So it's kind of like the lid is just halfway off. It's kind of sort of spewing out. It's not really spraying you, but it's just kind of a passive-aggressive spewing. So the emotional struggle is still anger for all 3 types, but it's expressed very differently between the 3. So type 1s, again, do not think they get angry, but do feel it as resentment. So they're going to be more expressing resentment. And then the common desire of this triad is justice. So you're going to see in each type, there's an emotional struggle, there's a common desire, in each triad. So for 8, 9s, and 1s, again, that's anger and justice, but it manifests very different for different reasons. So that's the gut triad. Type 2, 3, and 4, the heart triad. Again, similar assets and liabilities surrounding their feelings. So they engage in life and circumstances through their feelings. They feel first, and their emotional struggle is shame. So very different emotional struggle than the first triad, right? Their common desire is wanting significance and identity. So the first triad, their common desire was wanting justice. The second triad, the heart triad, their common desire is significance and identity. Those are very different, right? So that's why we cannot understand people's core motivation, because if my motive is really justice and your motivation is significance and identity, we're going to have a disconnect right there because we're going to be motivated differently. So these will make a lot more sense when we go through the types, but that's just the basic of that triad. And we'll get into how those look different. Types 5, 6, and 7, the head triad or the thinking triad. They, again, similar assets and liabilities around their thinking, but they manifest very differently. So they engage in life and circumstances first through mental analysis. So they're thinking their way through. It just goes to their head first, and their minds are very busy. So their emotional struggle is anxiety, and it manifests very different in the three numbers. When we go through the numbers, you'll see how that's different. And their common desire is having security. So let me go back to the feeling triad. So 2s, 3s, and 4, that heart triad. So they engage in life through their feelings, but let me just give an example of how it looks different. So 2s, the feeling triad, the 2s are all very much heart. So they feel other people's feelings. So a 2 goes into a room and they can feel out the room. They know who's hurting, they know who's doing well, and they want to insert themselves to feel with them. They're the ones that are going to come up to you stereotypically and say, you know, how are you doing? Are you okay? You look like you're maybe having a hard time. Or they're going to be way more engaged with how you're feeling, but they're not very in touch with how they're feeling because that feels selfish to them. So they're going to engage with you, but they're going to have trouble talking about themselves. 3s are the most efficient number on the Enneagram. Even though they enter life with their feelings, they engage in life with their feelings, they set their own feelings aside because they kind of get in the way of getting done what needs to get done. So they're going to be aware of how the room feels, what's going on, but they're going to set those feelings aside to move forward. And then the 4s, they are full of feelings. They can get overwhelmed with feelings. They feel your feelings, they feel their feelings, they feel the feelings of the group. They're very engaged with feeling. So the same thing as the 8, 9s, and 1s, the 2s are repressing their feelings. The 3s are suppressing their feelings, and the 4s are expressing their feelings. So they're manifesting different ways, but their core emotional struggle, again, is just that shame. And then 5, 6, and 7, same things. The 5s, their minds are very busy, but their minds are, they kind of keep them to themselves. They don't share their feelings a whole lot. The 6s are going to be more in their heads, planning, processing, thinking things through. They can be kind of worst case scenario thinkers. And so they can get filled with anxieties. They think of all the things that could go wrong. And then the 7s are planning their head in order to avoid pain. So they're using their minds to look ahead and come up with ideas and plans to keep going. They want to avoid pain. They want to not be limited or feel like they have too many boundaries on them. So this will all be explained more as we get into the numbers, but I just want you to see how the different triads really engage in life so very differently and how that can immediately be a disconnect on your team or a disconnect in your relationships. Because if I'm engaging in life through my gut and I don't really have time for feelings, I'm not feeling my feelings, it's going to be disconnected if I'm dealing with maybe a type 4 who needs to process their feelings and they're all about their feelings. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It could be a disconnect. And I can judge that, and this is what we're trying to avoid. I can judge that as wrong. Like, we don't have time to talk about feelings. We got to move on. We have a big project to get done. I don't have time for your feelings. Come on, get on board with me. And then that 4 who's struggling with shame and insecurity is going to feel very judged and put off. So you're going to have trouble on your team. You're going to have trouble in your marriage if you don't understand that her or his approach to life is not wrong. It's just different than yours. And your approach is not completely right. It's different than others. So again, we're trying to build that bridge of connection rather than all these disconnections that are dividing us and causing so many problems in families and marriages, in work environments, because we just think we need to make everybody see the world the same way as us. And how boring would that be? We need all the different types to make this world as colorful as it's supposed to be. So any questions around that so far? Did anyone? Nothing so far? You guys okay? Understanding the core. How about, let me just see if this is next. So let me just put this up for a minute. I want you to just kind of look at it for a minute and see if you can identify maybe the triad that you most align with at this point. You don't have to have landed anywhere, but what's kind of going, that's kind of calling my name. Have you kind of landed in a triad, most of you? I can see a few heads. It's okay if you haven't. Any ideas? Okay, so let's just go over them real quick. So again, the gut triad, the instinctive center, The emotional struggle is anger, and the desire to have justice. So if you just kind of learn these today, this is starting that self-awareness. So throughout today, just start trying to pay attention to what's going on inside of you when you're getting kind of stirred up or triggered or some kind of rumble strip is going on. Is it because you feel like something's not fair, something's not right, something's not going the way you think it should go because it's the right way to go? Or are you feeling some anxiety because you're feeling like I'm not feeling safe right now? My mind is telling me I'm not safe. Something's happening inside of me that is making me feel really anxious. So I'm not feeling safe. Or is there something going on that's making you feel like ashamed of who you are? Like there's something that doesn't feel right inside of me. I'm feeling some shame, some insecurity of who I am. They're making me feel, and you're really aware that you're feeling something that is causing you some discomfort. So just the challenge for today, just kind of just pay attention to what's going on inside of you. That's our challenge, to become that self-observer, almost like the airplane's getting about 30 feet off the ground and you're going, oh, I never knew that line was down there. You're kind of just learning to look at what's going on in your interior and seeing where that rumble strip is showing up again and again and again. Does that make sense? Yeah, go ahead. I see a hand.
Is it usual to feel all three on a given week?
Sure,
Depending
yeah.
on what kind of week you had?
Yeah, you will have all the feelings, but there's going to be one that dominates. So again, we're looking for that. What's that dominant one that keeps showing up more than the other ones? So is it you're just kind of frustrated and angry all the time, like just this little slow simmer of anger? Or maybe you're just expressing anger all the time, it just spews out. Or maybe you're just getting really resentful of the people you're working with because they're not doing things the right way. They're not doing it how you would do it. And there's just a slow resentment building. You're probably part of that anger triad. Or if there's just the emotional struggle is just like, man, I just am feeling worse and worse about who I am. I have to bury this feeling and just keep moving. Or I'm just kind of getting depressed and sad. Or I have to work harder to make people like me. Like I have to make sure everybody loves me. That's all kind of symptoms of the shame triad. Does that make sense? Or is it just, I got to think my way out of this? I got to think of what can I do to make this feeling go away? I got to think this through. I got to change the scenario here. Does that make sense? Does that help at all, Joshua?
Yeah, kind of.
A lot of this.
Because I look at it and I'm like, it seems like one could easily roll into the next.
Mm-hmm.
You get angry and then feel ashamed about getting angry or something, and then you have anxiety because you feel ashamed, and so you get angry.
For sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. So just pay attention to which one happens first.
I see.
Just see which one happens first, because we do engage all. We have them all. So we have them all, and they can switch around. But the other two can switch around. But that one, we usually start as your initial engagement, and then the other things come in. So especially say you're a 4, and you have that 5 wing, you're gonna think about how this is making you feel insecure. You could easily go over to that 5 wing, or you're going to start covering it up and trying to just appear like you're successful as a 3. Like they need to see that I'm okay, so I'm going to act like I'm okay because I'm feeling really insecure. So those wings will show up to help you get out of that feeling. But we want you to observe the feeling first and see where you're starting from.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. Oh gosh, now what did I do? Sorry guys. Where was I? See, I'm not used to this system. Oh my gosh. Sorry, we're gonna get a little review real quick. The problem is I can't see what number. I should have had my laptop up because I can't see what number I'm on to get to the right one.
Okay, we'll have a little refresher.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? I know a couple of people asked Grace if you would be willing to send us your PowerPoint if they could take notes. Maybe if they want to watch it again, or for those who didn't attend today?
I'll see what I can do. Some of this is copyrighted.
Okay.
But I'll see what I can do. Yeah, I have handouts that have a lot of this stuff on it.
Yeah.
So I will send you some stuff this week.
Perfect.
Um,
This is
and
you're
really-
doing a great job. This is super helpful.
Good. Okay. So I want to give some examples of each type, but let's get through this real quick. Oh gosh. I need a personal assistant to do this for me. Sorry. All right, here was where we were, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now, so we've got the triads. So again, we're talking about a map, right? So this is where it gets really helpful when you work with the Enneagram. And this is what the step a lot of people skip. So it's not just going, this is my type, but this is my type, and I want to understand how to make sure I'm awake to who I'm really created to be. So we've got lines and arrows. So you notice on the Enneagram, there's all those lines going on. So the Enneagram, again, is a symbol, simply a map of your internal world, showing you why you think, feel, and behave the way you do. So going back to that core motivation. So the lines in the Enneagram are patterns. When the red line is when we are under stress, the green line is when we are growing. So that's going to make more sense in just a second. So off of your number, you see two lines going on, right? At every number, there are two lines happening. So the lines and the arrows are the rumble strip along the highway. It warns us that we are veering off our path. So it doesn't really matter in terms, lines and arrows. What you're going to understand is one line goes to your number when you're doing well, you're healthy, you're secure, you're growing, you're kind of going in the right direction. The other line is going to be that rumble strip that starts to vibrate when you're kind of going off your best path and you're going to a place where you're going to land in a ditch, and you might bring a carload of people in the ditch with you. So it's really learning that self-awareness of which direction am I going in right now? Am I going to a place that's really going to hurt me and hurt others? Is what's happening inside of me? That rumble strip, waking up. I mean, if you're going down the freeway, you wouldn't stay on the rumble strip, would you? You would veer back into your lane. So that's the beauty of this tool. You're going to start becoming aware enough to understand, I'm going down the wrong path right now. I need to stop and re-steer this car.
Well, while we're waiting for that, so basically, if you can look at a number, I mean, if you turn on, I think one of your handouts has the diagram on there.
Yes.
So if you can look at a number and see how it has two lines. So one of the lines is where you go under stress when you move in that direction of your type arrow toward the average to unhealthy side of the type the arrows are pointing at. So once we get to the numbers, you'll see that every number, you're either doing really well, you're healthy, you're average, or you're unhealthy. And we fluctuate between those three levels all the time. So when say I'm a 9 and I'm getting really stressed, I will go to the lower side of my own number first, which we'll describe all those next week. And then I will go to the low side of a 6. So a 9 under stress goes to 6, to that low side, and my mind will just start spinning out with anxiety. So that's when I know I'm doing really bad. When I'm starting to think of all the worst things that could happen, I'm not sleeping at night, I know I'm really letting myself go into a lane where I don't belong. So to move away from that, then I would look toward the high side of the number 3, where 3s are decisive, they make good plans, they're efficient. So I can learn how to make those two movements away from my number. I don't become those numbers, but I can learn those two areas of awareness and also opportunity to grow. So hopefully that makes some sense. I'm trying to see if I can get back on. So you have one arrow you go under stress, the other area you go under when you're actually growing. So the growth point is when you move in the direction of your type's arrow toward the healthy side of the type the arrows are pointing at. So once you know your number, you're going to get to know your 2 wings, and then you're going to get to know where your number goes when you're stressed and where your number grows when you're feeling secure or healthy. And that will make more sense next week. Yeah, that helps probably, those handouts. And then were you, let's see, I'm trying to.
We good?
You're back now, Grace.
Okay. So do you see the arrows and the lines?
Yes.
You're probably seeing more than that, but I'm not going to touch anything. We're just going to leave it there.
Okay.
So, okay, so you understand you go one way under stress, another way under growth. Does everyone have that kind of concept? Okay. So your growth point is the direction you move in. So you see a 3 under stress is going to go to the low side of a 9, and under growth, she's going to go, or he's going to go to the high side of a 6. So once you get to know those numbers, you can see your paths. So a rumble strip's going to take her down this way, where a normally highly efficient 3 is going to go to kind of a lethargic, sit on the couch and watch Netflix for 3 days, lower side of a 9. So that's like a rumble strip. So really a usually highly motivated 3. There's one thing for self-care, but they can go into a self-comfort mode where they're being unproductive and really the opposite of what they normally look like. So again, this is all about balance. So the 3, when they're really unbalanced, are going to go to a really low side of the 9. Same for all the numbers. So 4, doing well, we're going to go to the high side of a 1 and really make good decisions, not be so dominated by their feelings. When they're not doing so well, they're going to go to a low side of a 2 when they're under stress and become kind of resentful to other people, feel sorry for themselves. That's when they can kind of get depressed and really melancholy. So all the numbers are different, but I just want you to see what happens here. So a 6, again, where they're doing really well, they're going to go to the high side of a 9 and become a little more relaxed, because remember, they're high anxiety. So when they're growing and really working on themselves, being self-aware, they're going to learn how to go to that high side of the 9, where they trust more their own voice. They trust more that things are going to work out. They can get more to that place of peace. So that's how these all kind of work together. 7s, when they're stressed, are going to go to lower side of the 1. So really, normally you're going to need to know the 7. They're usually really happy and cheerful and everything's great. Then all of a sudden they can become pretty controlling and dominant and opinionated about how things should go. That's usually a rumble strip for them. They're kind of going to an unhealthy place. Where when they're doing well, they can go to the high side of a 5 and be more settled, more aware of all the options, more aware of all of the information. They're not going to jump to conclusions. They're going to balance out. So again, this is all about kind of getting to this center where we're more balanced and not dominated by one type or one way of engaging with the world. So it's getting all these colors that we start to see. So we have our stress and our growth. Some people call it security or disintegration. There's different, each teacher is going to use a different phrase or a different name for each type. I kind of, for myself, I kind of relate to, I'm disintegrating right now. Inside, I'm falling apart. I may look like I'm doing well on the outside, but I can feel inside I'm going in a bad way. And so I'm trying to learn to wake up to that quick. So for all of us, it's about waking up to where we're going. So we don't get home or away from the meeting and go, why did I say that? What was even going on in me? That's not even who I am. Why did that even happen? What's happening is we're putting on some cover up because we're feeling threatened by something. So we're putting on some structure or we're creating some scaffolding to make us look different than who we really are. So it's about this growth of being comfortable with who we are in our own skin, but also being aware that this personality type that I identify with, it's not who I am, but it's where I'm identifying, isn't serving me well. I need to grow away from that old pattern. So what we're talking about here is just kind of ruts in our brain, patterns that we've just always learned to do or always just stayed in that rut, and we're learning to kind of grow some new patterns. So this has helped me personally, and it's helped a lot of people I know realize this is why I keep doing that same thing over and over and over again. Why I can't move away from this bad habit. Why I keep getting trapped in these same arguments. Why we keep having the same tension in our relationship. It's because I don't realize that this is where I'm stuck. So the Enneagram is kind of that mirror that shows us where we're stuck. And next week when we get into the types, you're going to see that sometimes the easiest way to find your type is really by looking at the dark side. Because what's really good about you is also usually what really is difficult about you. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin. So we're going to look at both sides. But most people, once we start trying to identify what type we relate to or identify with the most people can find that type by looking at the darker side and go, oh yeah, I didn't know anybody else knew that, but that is who I am inside. And then it's going to shock you a little bit to realize other people do see it. Usually we're just fooling ourselves. So I'm like, oh, you knew that about me. And they're like, yeah, I knew that about you. So just an example. So a 9, one thing we fixate on is we avoid conflict at all costs. So we all have a fixation. We'll go over those next week. Every number has fixation. And I think I'm just being a peacemaker and keeping everybody happy. But the people dealing with me are frustrated because I can't say what I really think, what I really feel. They want to know that. They need to know that to connect to me. So if I'm not willing to show up and not be afraid of the conflict and realize no one's going to die if I say what I think, then I can't really have a full-on relationship with anybody, not even myself. So that's what I'm talking about, learning to identify what is that real weakness in me that needs to be uncovered so it can heal and grow and move away from that pattern that doesn't serve me and doesn't serve those that I love. Does that make sense? So when we get into the types, that will make a lot more sense. So we've got these arrows and lines. So I want you to understand that because this is what makes the Enneagram tool so effective. So it really is a tool. It's not just an identifier. It's like, okay, this actually gives me something to do with this information I have. Because you might have just had a label in the past. Look, I don't know if any of you have done the 4 temperaments, but maybe you've been labeled a sanguine, you've been labeled an introvert, you've been labeled something. It's like, but I'm a lot more than that. And you really are. And you want to show your whole self. So how do I show people that this isn't all I am? I am an introvert, but that doesn't mean I don't like people. I just is the way I'm refueled or whatever it is. Or I really do wish I could express myself better. So you need to give me some time and some patience. Let's keep going. So we're going to give an example of the 2. So under stress, so the 2, a typical name for the 2 is the helper. Sometimes they're even called the lover on the Enneagram. They're the real heart person, that they're the ones that are going to text you, how you doing today? Have you had a good day? They're the ones that are going to stay connected even during COVID. Some of us are like out of sight, out of mind. The 2s are going to be thinking, who do I need to contact today? Who do I need to connect with? They're the connectors on the Enneagram. We need 2s in our lives. So a 2 under stress moves toward the average and healthy type 8, which would be the opposite of who they are. Because 2s are never going to intentionally say anything that will hurt your feelings. Or 8s, sometimes if they're in an unhealthy space, they're just going to express their anger immediately. They have trouble controlling their passion, and it comes out as anger. So a 2 under stress can go to that low side of the 8. So needy 2s suddenly become irritable, aggressive, and dominating. They blame and make demands and become controlling of everyone and everything. So this can be really shocking if you're in a work environment with a 2 and they've always just been really caring and kind and loving, and all of a sudden they're controlling and demanding. You're like, where did she come from? Well, she's just been stuffing that for a long time, and now it's coming out in an aggressive way. That usually will happen in their home more than anywhere else. One of my very best friends is a 2, and she's the one that just volunteers for everything, helps everybody, makes everybody feel great. Well, yeah, I can have the company party at my house. I can have the holiday dinner at my house. But then all of a sudden she starts to feel taken advantage of and gets a little resentful that nobody else is doing it. She's always the one doing it all. That's a rumble strip for her. So that's where she knows she's getting under stress. Or if she's feeling like she's disconnecting from people, she'll start texting everybody she knows because she's feeling this fear of disconnection. So why is she doing that? Because she's stressed. She's under pressure. So a growth point for her is that type 2 moves toward the healthy side of type 4. So it's just aware. So I realize I'm doing this. I realize I'm going to an unhealthy place. I realize I'm stressing out and I'm going to hurt me and hurt others. So now I have the choice to go on this other line. I need to identify, they become more self-nurturing and compassionate toward themselves. A typical 2 has a very hard time of saying, what do I need? What I need. So for a 2, when they start getting blaming and making demands, a healthier path for them would be stopping, taking a breath and going, what do I need? I need some help. I need to call a friend, or I need to tell my work partner, I put too much on my plate. I need some help. Very hard for a 2 to do, but that's going to be building that muscle of strength in them. And the more you become aware of how you grow, the stronger that muscle becomes. And the more you become more confident in that space and you become more yourself. So they are more emotionally aware and begin to admit and accept painful feelings, including anger, sadness, and loneliness. So you see how those are pretty opposite of each other. So you've got your lovely 2, male and female. This is not a gender specific type at all. Sometimes it's harder for male 2s in the world, and we can talk about that later. But they unhealthily will go to a place of resenting, making demands, and blaming others for their unhappiness. In a healthy place, they start to identify, this is what I need. It's okay that I have needs. It's okay that I express my needs. And it's okay that I ask for help. That's just a simple example of how these lines work. Does that make sense? So for your number, it's going to be really important that you get to know where your lines go. So then you're going to have to get to know your stress number, and you're going to have to get to know your growth number. It's not just getting to know your number. So you have to understand how those numbers work. And then the last thing we'll just go real quick through today is, because we don't have time to go through all of this, but just in each type, as you develop, as you grow, I mentioned this earlier, there's these 3 levels. So we all kind of fluctuate between healthy and average most of the time. If we get into the unhealthy zone, that's usually when we need some more help, maybe some good therapy or counseling or some kind of intervention. We won't go through all the levels, but our goal is to stay up here somewhere, to really get to know when we're healthy, when we're doing well, and to pay attention when we're getting down here and those rumble strips are happening, and we need to pay attention and move away from that ditch. And the more you work with this tool, the easier that becomes. The more quickly you're aware, and the faster you can move away from where that danger is. So what I want to challenge you to do between now and next Tuesday, when we start talking about each type, is to just pay attention to what you're fixating on this week. Where does your attention go first? What seems to rise up in you first? So really the hardest part of this work is just becoming aware, because we just kind of get in our patterns. We go throughout our days. We have our conversations without even being aware of how it's affecting us or how it's affecting others. Watch other people's faces when you're talking. What kind of response are they having? Just pay attention to what's going on inside of you, becoming aware. Am I shutting off my feelings? Am I not doing what I'm supposed to do out of fear? Am I feeling really insecure, and why am I feeling so insecure? What's going on? Just becoming more and more aware. I'm going to I'll email Hillary a paragraph test to help you identify your type. So what it's going to have is 9 paragraphs that you read, and you pick out 1 or 2 paragraphs that you identify with, and I just want you to sit with them throughout the week. And then as it goes on, go back and review them and circle which paragraph seems to stand out to you the most. Like, none of them are going to be like, that's exactly me. Okay, because remember, we're a mix. But I think if you pay attention, one's going to be like, yeah, that is really my normal pattern. That seems to be where I land most often. And then just kind of play with that for a few days and see if that's true. And it may not be. You might go, no, I really am not like that. That's kind of how I've always thought I was. But if I really look inside, that's not how I am. So I'll send that in just a minute, and I think they can email those out to you. And then next week, I will tell you which pattern or which paragraph is what number. So that's one way that I really like to help you identify. Another way is the online tests, but the challenge with the online tests is that many of us have a really hard time being objective about ourselves. So it's really hard to take those tests and really be objective, because really, even a lot depending on your number, some are going to be trying to think, what's the right answer? What's the best answer? Who am I supposed to be? So if you do choose to do an online test, some are better than others, some are free, some aren't. The RETTI, R-H-E-T-T-I, it's through the Enneagram Institute. That one costs $12. That has the best reputation for being a good one, but there are a lot of free ones. Start with a free one, it might work for you. But just know that they're not foolproof. They're about 63% correct usually. And sometimes I'll work with people and I'll do some identifying. I'll do an interview with them and ask them clarifying questions, and their test will be completely wrong, just because we're not good at observing ourselves. We're pretty good at observing everybody else, but to be self-aware is a skill that we have to learn, and this tool will help us do that. So next week, what we'll do is we will start on this and really trying to figure out what color lens you have on most of the time, or all the time, and how that shades what you're thinking. So when we put on those lenses, see how that picture there shows you that your wings influence how that color sees, your arrows, and your levels of development. How healthy are you? How self-aware are you? And I don't want you to feel any shame around that. This is not a natural thing we do. We, as children, kind of get in these patterns. We develop this scaffolding. We just have to survive in this world. So this is kind of work of peeling back some of that scaffolding and going, wow, this is where I started, and this is where I can grow from. So I really want to encourage you that it's a great tool for growth, personal growth, professional growth, relational growth, but it's not instant. It is a journey. It's not a quick trip. So next week, we'll go over every number, talk about your bright side and your dark side, and how those two work together. A little bit of work with the lines and arrows, a little bit of work with your wings, but mostly it'll be describing every number, and I'll give some illustrations around each number that I think will help you go, that is where I started. That is my core number. So I'll send those paragraphs, play with those, do an online test if you want, not necessary. And then next week we'll go through each type. Any questions or comments?
Grace, I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Are there certain books that you recommend, like if we want to dive deeper into?
Yeah, great question. Yes, for sure. I'll email those too, but let me just mention a couple. A great primer is called The Road Back to You. Have any of you read that? It's a really fun book too, because at the beginning of every chapter they have questions for each one. It's written by a man named Ian Cron and Suzanne Stabile. They both have podcasts that are excellent, 2 different podcasts. Ian's is called, I can't remember, I think his is called Typology, something like that. Ian Cron, his podcast, and then Suzanne Stabile's is called The Enneagram Journey, and I'll put those in the email too. But that's a great primer. It's just called The Road Back to You. There's one that's just kind of around those paragraphs that I'm going to send you, so you don't need to buy the book.
Okay.
But those are really, I think, to start with. And they'll give you a pretty deep dive, but not a super deep dive. Then there's some that are just way too deep for right now. But Road Back to You is really fun, and I think you'd enjoy that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to come off mute if you have any questions or comments for Grace? No? All right. Well,
next week will be a lot more fun. Let me just say that. It's a lot more fun once we get into the types. This is just the foundation, but we have to start there.
Exactly.
So come back next week.
So thank you again, Grace, for all of this information. This has been outstanding information. I've already taken a couple of tests, so I look forward to next week's deeper dive into exploring Enneagrams. Thank you again to Strata Credit Union, CVCC, and Carney's for sponsoring this series. And then also for those who attended today, Crumble Cookies, which is a new cookie shop in town. I think they opened about a month ago. They have donated 2 4-packs of their cookies that you get to choose from. So whatever type you like. We thought that would be kind of fun. So you guys could go in and pick your own cookie. So we'll pick 2 lucky winners, and we'll announce those on our social media accounts later this afternoon. And then I'll turn it over to Frances to finish out the session.
Thanks, Hillary. Thank you so much, Grace. This was a lot of really amazing information. I think it can help all of us on our own personal journeys, and also just to help connect with our coworkers, our family, and any relationships we have. So we really appreciate you joining us today. For those of you who want to continue this journey with us, we encourage you to RSVP for next week's webinar, where we'll be back with Grace, kind of diving more into your own Enneagram type, as she explained. So Hillary sent out that link in our chat. So go ahead and use that link to RSVP for next week. It'll be on the 15th, so a Tuesday, not a Wednesday, at the same time at 10:30. So thank you so much for being here with us today, and we hope to see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, girls. Bye.